Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and Canada. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Kris Sims, BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Welcome back to the show, Kris.
Thank you so much.
Well, you got the privilege of being locked up, which means you can't talk to anybody for a few hours before the BC budget. After digging through those pages and pages of documents, what struck you and what is stinging us taxpayers the most?
Well, it's always interesting being in a lockup, and I will say I find it even more so now that we're so interconnected and dependent on our phones. You actually have to surrender your phone, and there's no contact outside of the building for 5 hours, which nowadays, that just felt strange. So that was interesting. But as far as the money goes, we're worried about 3 main things. One is the language that is within the budget document for the Clean BC program. That was, of course, the program that was all shiny that they announced a few months ago. Both Premier John Horgan and Green Party leader Andrew Weaver made the big announcement. And we now know what the price tag is for that shiny program. And it's more than $900 million over the next 3 years, which is a ton of dough. And apart from the money, we're really concerned about the language being used in this official government budget document. They're even going after natural gas use in your home here in BC. They're calling it a fossil fuel, which I guess technically it is, but in energy circles, calling something a fossil fuel is maybe used as a slur. And to call something as abundant and useful and relatively affordable and important to British Columbia as natural gas, a fossil fuel, and to be basically dissing it in a budget document was really concerning. And they also were saying that they wanted to incentivize, which basically means bribe you with your own money, of $2,000 if you would rip out your natural gas furnace in your home and replace it with an electric heat pump. And so that was raising some alarm bells. Number one, the government shouldn't be telling you or trying to force you through payment and taxation to heat your home in a way that they see fit. Number two, practically speaking, I know a lot of people who have had heat pumps, their electric heat pumps, and they're great if you're in a climate like Victoria or shoulder seasons like fall and spring, but in deep, cold winter, a place like Prince George or Fort St. John, or even a place like Cranbrook or Kamloops, a lot of times people don't want to rely solely on an electric heat pump for their sole source of heat. So that's highly concerning. The second thing we were very concerned about there was ICBC. ICBC, the finance minister, Carol James, again called it a frustration, again said that it's a financial risk. And in the budget document, it's showing that their actual equity, the equity of the company, that negative $270 million. Just a big number to be underwater by. And most financial experts, when they're referring to corporations, if their equity is in the negative, especially in the negative $270 million, they'll use terms like insolvency. So I don't know if that counts for a crown corporation, but it's really disturbing to see. And to see ICBC, to see them projecting that somehow, 2 or 3 years from now, they'll miraculously be turning a profit, going from billion-dollar dumpster fires each year to a profit, we think that's a little bit too rosy. So we're concerned there. And thirdly, the big thing that jumped out at us was the debt. So it's good that the operating debt has gone. That's important, and that's a good thing. But the actual debt of the province of British Columbia is going up by $14 billion with a B over 3 years. That's about $4 million a month. And so that money will eventually have to be paid. That bill will come due. And so we're still concerned about the actual debt, you know, that the operating debt is taking up the headlines.
What's the difference to somebody like me who doesn't know a lot about accounting between an actual debt and an operating debt?
I asked that exact question, and very smart people in the lockup. And so what happens in the lockup is some politicians, but there's mostly some staffers, and there's really smart people who usually work in departments or bureaucracies. And so I asked them that. What I understand, and I will stand corrected if I'm incorrect, operating debt is, the day-to-day, how they fund their ministries, how they fund care, how they fund education. Whereas actual debt can include things like your capital expenses, things like bridge building, road building, all your infrastructure, that sort of stuff that doesn't move around. That's my basic understanding of it. If I'm incorrect, I will stand corrected.
So it's not really balanced then?
Well, the budget is balanced in the sense that there's no deficit, right? But if you add up the stuff, basically, that British Columbia as a province owns and owes, then no, there's a debt. It's going up by $4 million a month. Now, to be clear, there was a debt before the NDP Green government came in. I think every single province in Canada is in debt. We're all underwater. The country of Canada is in debt. You can look up the debt clock if you're really a sucker for punishment. It's right on our website. And you can find the real-time debt for the country of Canada and every single provincial jurisdiction. And it goes up at a scary rate. The numbers are clicking over like, those old gasoline pumps you used to see that spin around with the numbers. It looks like that. So yeah, we are in debt, but this budget doesn't have a deficit for this year.
Now, a $2,000 grant to put a heat pump into your home, does that also depend on the geological kind of area that you live in, whether you can get heat out? What if you live next to a river and all you're going to get is water?
That's a great question. And my understanding, and again, I would love to hear from some experts on this, and because I actually have an electric heat pump that is relatively new in the house that we have way back in the Maritimes there, actually, and they were careful to say this would be an electric from air heat pump. So it's not those ones that are kind of geothermal. It's not dug into the ground. These ones are kind of freestanding things that you put outside of your home. A lot of them times have switched over to this. And it actually pulls heat energy out of the air, even when it's cold out. And they transfer it into heat. And it blows out of kind of a little, it almost looks like a big, long printer. And you put it up on your wall somewhere. And it gently puts out heat. It's not like a baseboard heater. There's no heating element in it. It's actually pulling heat energy out of the air. And so it feels like magic. They do work, in my experience, in the shoulder seasons. They're usually best. So on a chilly October morning, they're great. But in my experience with the folks that I talk to from places that get super cold, most people don't rely on them as a sole source of heat. And our caution is that even if you had one that somehow worked at, 30 or 40 below, which would be great, if that's your only source of heat and it's forever tied to the cost of BC Hydro, what happens if, God forbid, years from now, we run into a problem like Ontario had, and BC Hydro has gone through the roof, and your only source of heat for your home is tied to the electrical grid and tied to that electricity bill that you get every month or so. So we're just raising some flags there, even though it's not directly about taxes. It's about things like your utility bills and your affordability, things that we all need to pay in order to survive in a modern world. And so we wanted to put some red flags down around there. And your listeners will understand the nuance here. Our concern is that while they're going ahead with LNG, which is a good thing, to export the natural gas from British Columbia, one of our key resources here in the province, it almost feels like make up for that export of natural gas to ship it overseas. They're kind of, quote unquote, compensating for it here at home. That they'll try to crack down on the use of our natural gas by British Columbians to make up for the fact that they're somehow increasing their carbon footprint or whatever by shipping it overseas. And we don't want to see that happen either. That would be really unfair to people of BC.
We'll have more with Kris Sims right after this.
Aven Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN AF. surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines. Aven's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avenresources.com.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, Recycling Trade Publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Just thought I'd let you hear the announcement.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I'm surprised you heard that. Oh.
Could have been important.
Could.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Kris Sims. Kris, should medical marijuana be taxed?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know. It depends on, I guess, if I actually haven't looked into this before. It depends on if other medicines are taxed. Are other medicines taxed?
Not usually.
Well, then, if it's considered a medicine, then why should you tax it? Then probably no. If folks, just imagine if you've got a person who has a medical marijuana prescription and they're getting chemo or radiation, and they're using it for medicine, why would you tax that? Why would you single that out? So if other medicines aren't taxed in that way, then no.
Of course, I have the feeling politicians chuckle to themselves, oh, they're just using it to get high, so we better tax it.
It's pathetically not that widely available yet legally. In British Columbia, of all places, you think that we'd have corner stores everywhere with BC Bud. It will eventually become so widely available that few people will probably wind up even getting medical marijuana prescriptions. It'll probably be people who are otherwise, how would I put it, not usually inclined to use such a substance, and if their doctor tells them to, that sort of set would probably go get a prescription. But eventually it'll become so widely available that most people, even to self-medicate, quote unquote, will probably just go get it from the store. Getting it as a prescription will probably become much different. For the longest time, remember, during the prohibition of alcohol, some people still used to get prescriptions from their doctor for alcohol. Now, of course, the health benefits of alcohol could be debated, and we do know, I think most of us know people who have really been helped, especially when dealing with things like nausea, and deep sadness. I know that I've had some people, unfortunately, in my family who had terminal illnesses, who wanted it and eventually got the use of medical marijuana. And so I think that's a very sensitive and important topic, and I would be surprised if a politician tried going after it, thinking that people are just trying to skirt the laws. I know some folks are still probably getting their supply from dispensaries, but it's a time of transition. I think, in a year or two, we'll probably have a full supply of legally available marijuana.
Do we have any idea how much tax revenue the government has missed because of their very poor, disorganized rollout of legal pot in BC?
That's a great point, actually, and it was something I wanted to ask them because I found it interesting that the amount of tax that they're bringing in from the Liquor Corporation, which is, my understanding, is it's under that umbrella within the budget document. It didn't look like it was going up, and so I expected to see it going up because of the sale of legal marijuana. And so I wanted to ask that question, but didn't get a chance to. But what I've heard so far on some subsequent interviews is that they don't yet know how much money they're going to be taking in through legal marijuana and the taxation of it. And they don't know how much they've missed so far. So that's a darn good question. It would have been nice if they had had all of this lined up before Go Day. But in fairness, the BC government did warn. They said that it was basically going to be a soft launch and that it would take them a few months to actually get going.
Yeah, it's amazing they couldn't have gone to Colorado and Washington State and Oregon and found out how they did it, what worked and what didn't. Instead, they had to reinvent the wheel.
And that's one of the common frustrations I find when you start getting into government and policy, is that they can wind up with blinders on. And in the day where, it takes you a couple of seconds to, set up a video interview, or a Skype interview or have a phone call or have a teleconference with everybody surrounded around your board table and their board table. It's weird that there isn't more very inexpensive cross-border, cross-country consultation going on. We often hear about junkets and, the need to fly overseas and spend taxpayer dollars to go to all of these conferences and meetings. But then, we'll have something as, phenomenal and monumental as legalizing marijuana and all of the things that come along with it, and they're just kind of playing catch-up still. So it is disappointing that they didn't do a bit more homework before they had to say go.
Maybe the places weren't warm and sunny enough.
Yeah, maybe the catering was subpar.
We'll have more with Kris Sims right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp, RMO on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp is a Canadian-based mineral exploration project generator. The company currently holds multiple property interests in Ontario with joint venture partners and is seeking further joint venture partners for other drill-ready properties in our portfolio. For more information, please visit our website at rmroyalty.com or call me at 604-922-2030.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Kris Sims. Kris, do you think anybody in Ottawa in government paid attention to that pipeline rally with all the big trucks that rolled onto Parliament Hill for a couple of days, or was that subverted by people who tried to take the message away from the pipeline people?
This is something that is super sad. As a Western Canadian and as someone whose family has been heavily involved in the resource industry growing up, my uncles and stuff too, it's really, really frustrating to see some tiny handfuls of nasty people, I'll put it that way, trying to take over a movement that is supposed to be about natural resources. It's supposed to be mostly about Western Canada and getting their product to market, getting it through the pipelines, getting the pipelines put through. And to have people who are hateful and who are bigoted kind of glom onto that with their own agenda is disappointing. If they want to go spew their message somewhere on their own time, away from other people, it's a free country. It's up to them. We'll let the courts sort them out. But to see that the message has been marred when the vast majority of people just want to get the message of resources and pipelines through is really sad. So hopefully some folks up on Parliament Hill will be able to filter that. They'll be able to filter out the bad elements there, and I hope that they're just trace elements. I hope they're just small elements of that movement. And they'll be able to hear the big message, which is we want our product to get to market. They want their jobs. They want their pipelines to be built. That's what I was hearing from a lot of those truckers who are rolling across Canada into Ottawa. And keep in mind, some of these folks were bringing their families with them. They've taken months to do this. And I think it would do politicians a lot of good to truly open their ears and their minds to people. And if they really embrace tolerance, they need to embrace Western Canadians too. That includes people who work in the oil and gas industry. That includes resource families. And they need to really, really understand what this has done, what all of these pipeline stoppages have done to people in Western Canada. I was reading an article, I think it was in the Calgary Sun, that I think it made most people cry that read it. And they were speaking with specialists. These are scientists who have masters and doctorate degrees in the sciences. They do things like they find oil. They're geological experts, and they work with oil companies usually. A lot of these types of folks have been out of work for more than a year. They've lost their homes. And one that I was seeing that was being interviewed was actually now lying on his resume, saying he only had a high school education so he could get a job at Dairy Queen. We can't keep doing this. So those are the types of messages that those politicians in Ottawa need to be paying attention to. They need to be mature enough to realize that they can ignore any bigot that's yelling through a megaphone. Ignore that person. Listen to the person who is telling you that they've lost their home and that family is on the ropes and that they need their jobs back. Jobs that up until now have provided for homes, for vehicles, for hockey lessons, you name it. This is the difference between, maybe $100,000 or even $200,000 a year and next to nothing. And that's real. And they need to listen to that message. And all I can do is hope that they did. I hope that they filtered out the noise that came along with it and that they truly heard the message.
Is the message from the NDP and the Greens in BC they'd rather you work at Dairy Queen than in the oil patch?
Sadly, yeah. And it hurts me to say that because I know, and I hope they're listening, I know there are a lot of tradespeople who are connected to the NDP that have a history with that party. They were often referred to as the party of the working person. And so, steel workers, pipe fitters, laborers, all of these people, those who go to work in steel-toed boots, they've been voting for that party for years. And now we're seeing more than ever this torsion, this tension between, I would say, the working, the blue-collar set of that party, the boiler makers, who are within that party, and these anti-natural resource, anti-oil activists who live in hyper-urban situations and think their groceries magically appear on shelves. It's upsetting to see this. And so with the most radical elements of the Green Party too. Unfortunately, the message that a lot of them are getting is that go work at Dairy Queen. There are some exceptions. There's the construction of the Site C dam, which we're bracing ourselves. We're so worried it's going to go over budget. We know it's going to cost a lot of money. But those are all skilled tradespeople and heavy-duty laborers. That's a lot of jobs. The LNG project that's going out of Kitimat, that's another nod to that side of their party. So we really hope that the common sense part, the common sense working people part, really takes over. And that would be really evident if they got their heads out of the sand and approved the Trans Mountain Pipeline. If they stopped blocking it and they actually allow them to twin that pipeline out to Burnaby, that would be a big sea change.
Well, wouldn't that also mean a break for taxpayers because the government would have new sources of revenue?
Yes. Just think of the amount of revenue that comes from things like oil and gas. What I found interesting is if you take a look at the budget document, you can see where their projections are of how much taxation they're going to get from certain types of tax. And there's the gas tax, there's the carbon tax, there's all these taxes, and the projections are only going up. So they know that people will still be using oil and gas. They know that they'll still be paying that carbon tax, but they try to tell us that the carbon tax is to try to get you to reduce your use, reduce the use of the fuel that gets you to work or what heats your home. So it's really hypocritical. They're trying to suck and blow at the same time. And if you think about it, of how much money that they make off of things like the Trans Mountain Pipeline, even as property taxes in places like Burnaby, it's an enormous amount of money that they get as tax revenue from these things. Not to mention the jobs actually twinning and managing the thing.
Kris, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for caring so much about BC issues. Much appreciated.
My guest has been Kris Sims, BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Her website, taxpayer.com. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. If you have any questions for Kris or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.